I'll be talking about a little bit, something a little away from temple, core temple, but a little bit connected to the temple, a topic connected to the temple. So, the title of the topic is Investigating the Physical and Socio-Cultural Fabric of Agraharas of Mysuru. So, basically, when you look at Agraharam or Chaturvedi Mangalam, these are the category of housing that was present in the temple towns or the places where temples were mainly concentrated in South India. So when you look at the word Agrahara, it actually talks about Agra meaning the boundary or the foremost entrance or something which defines the boundary of something, and Hara, it means garland, something to wear. So this is like something which is defining a place. So when you look at Agrahara, these were the residential quarters basically dedicated to the priestly families that were surrounding the temples and who were working in the temples. So my focus of this research would be on understanding the evolution, then the importance, and maybe taking a case study and trying to further compare that with the present day scenarios of how they have evolved. Are they still linked with the temples or have they completely urbanized and linked? So coming to the aspect of how the Agraharams came into picture. So this all starts from the Pallava period where these were given as tax-free grants. These lands were given as tax-free grants to the Brahmin community and around the temples. So they were brought in from different parts of South India to look after the temples. Maybe like Srirangam temple, Sridambaram. You can see some temple towns in Karnataka also where they were pulled across, even in Kerala, largely in Kerala, they were pulled across and they were made to stay in these areas to look after the temple and also maintain the spiritual aspect around the temple town. So from the Pallava period, you can see the transition from a homogeneous cluster. It evolved into, during the Vijayanagara and Nayaka time, it converted into a radial expansion around the temple. And then during the colonial and post-independence time, it further amalgamated with other land uses. And in the contemporary style, it has completely shifted its nature, and it has been from homogeneous, it is completely converted into a heterogeneous residential quarters. So this is just a comparative chart that I have developed across the Pallava period, the medieval period and the modern period in terms of understanding the origin of Agraharams. So during the Pallava, using the concept of Brahmadaya, all the tax-free land grants, these areas were dedicated, given to the Brahmins. During the medieval period, these were integrated into the temple complex, around the temple complexes. And during the modern period, the royal patronage reduced because we shifted towards a democratic country. So it reduced, and how these Brahmins shifted out of the city and the essence of the Agraharams are slowly losing. Coming to the purpose of these Agraharams were basically to withhold and maintain the Vedic rituals, scholarship and the teachings around the temple complex. And also during the medieval period, they acted as a residential and educational hubs. And in the modern time, it is converted from an exclusive Brahmin settlements to a mixed-use urban area. Coming to the urban forms, during the Pallava time, they were neatly arranged in linear fashion. Then during the medieval period, they shifted across into radiations across the temple, like Srirangam you can take into consideration. And in the modern period, the modern architectural styles came into picture, and it is completely changed into that aspect. So during the Pallava time, the education and economy part of it played through the royal patronage. Then slowly it got shifted into self-sustaining economies. And in the modern time, it has shifted into a completely economically diverse urban setting. So coming to the role of temple life around these Agraharams, where basically in terms of understanding the ritual proximity, where the priests and the Vedic scholars lived close to each other through uninterrupted daily rituals. Then festival structuring. So these areas where the Agraharas were placed, they acted as the chariot, car street, or the Ratha Bidi that you can call in Kannada or other languages, where the cart festival used to happen, and the people would participate over different important festivals. Then the education and knowledge system, where the Gurukuls flourished around these Agraharams, and community network through shared spaces and cultural continuity in terms of understanding the temple as the nucleus and the temple life around. Coming to understanding the formations of these Agraharams, you can see there are various typologies. So I have tried to map them in terms of understanding linear Agraharam, are where the temple, there are clusters of temples and the Agraharams are placed all around it. And some of them are also mainly temple-centric cities, like you can take the case of Srirangam, Sringeri, or you can take the case of Madurai also, where the houses are placed all around it, and that's how the urban planning was also done. Then hybrid or the evolved Agraharams are the present-day Agraharams, where the palace also comes into picture, like the case of Mysore, and other activities like mutts and all are placed around it, and the Agraharams have evolved around it. So, doing a comparative analysis across Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka Agraharams in terms of urban form, where in Kerala it was a mix of linear, radial and courtyard with the temple in the center and the surrounding Agraharams around it. Whereas in Tamil Nadu, it was main focus was on linear and clustered form of Agraharams. In Karnataka, it is a mix of 2-3 typologies of Agraharams. In terms of the temple life, in Kerala, the temple is the central core. In Tamil Nadu, the festivities, everything happens starting from the temple, and in Karnataka, it takes a strong temple integration along with the royal patronage. Coming to the architectural style, in Kerala, when you look at the Agraharams, they have an influence of the Nalukettu architectural style of the local architecture, whereas in Tamil Nadu, even though the form is somewhat similar, they have Madras roofing that comes into picture. Whereas in Karnataka or Mysore, along with the influence of Tamil influence of Agraharam style, they also have the local architecture in terms of the jaggeries that are there in front of the houses. A little bit, the typology is the same, but the meaning of the word is different. Then coming to the community life, in Kerala, you could see a strong sense of collective rituals that were happening around these Agraharams. Whereas in Tamil Nadu, it is mostly ritual centric, like you can see the Dikshita community, which Sir was mentioning earlier today. So around the temple of Chidambaram, Dikshita community is strongly placed there, and for them the temple is everything, the life and then everything revolves around the temple. So that is the concentration of the Agraharam, the housing settlement that is there in Chidambaram. Whereas in Karnataka, it is a combination of the mutts, like you have the Shaiva mutt, the Malva mutt. There you have the Smarta, Shaiva, Sri Vaishnava. These are different typologies of Vedantas that are there, and the mutts are there, and these housing settlements are also evolved around them. Coming to the status quo, in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, we can see that there are some amount of efforts being put into preserving these Agraharams, whereas in Karnataka still that is not coming to picture. So that is what I want to try to highlight. So the need of the study would be to understand Agraharams in terms of their spatial, cultural and religious aspects, and how they integrated the temple life, housing and community together, actually focusing on the tangible aspects in terms of architecture, street patterns, and the intangible heritage like rituals, festivals and social structures. In Tamil Nadu and Kerala, where they have a preservation that is going on, like you can see some rules and acts being placed, like in Kerala you can see some acts being placed to preserve the Agraharams. But in Karnataka still it is not a little bit behind and it needs to be looked into. So to address this gap, Mysore has been identified as the focal area for the study. And in Mysore we look at the royal patronage of the Wadiyar family, where the temples and mutts came into picture as the Agraharams evolved around them. So Agraharas of Mysuru can be looked as row houses with courtyards and street layouts, which reflect the distinct architectural vocabulary of Mysore. They also act as cultural anchors, which is also seen in the procession time during the Dasara festival. So, but presently due to rapid urbanization, cultural dilution and absence of legal protection, they are actually getting dissolved. So, when you look at the study area of Mysore, it is known for 3 important and famous things, that is Chamundeshwari temple, who killed Mahishasura Mardini, and the Wadiyar family, who were the main royal patronage in the entire city. So here you can see these 2 images that have placed there, the paintings that are there in the Royal Palace of Mysore. The background images that you can see, this gives you a slight picture of the Agraharams that were present during the ancient times. So Agraharams were largely built during the Krishnaraja Wadiyar time, and they were built for 3 main reasons. One was to accommodate the Brahmin scholars and the priests associated with the palace to enhance the along with the Sanskrit College of Mysore Maharaja, then also to accommodate the migrants that came from Srirangapatnam during the Tipu Sultan time. Third one was to accommodate the musicians. So I come from a family of musicians, and my family was also part of the Agraharams identified the evolution of these Agraharams in Mysore over the various time scales. So you can see there are many Agraharams actually in Mysore, but these are some of the typical Agraharams that I have picked up and tried to understand what was the reason that they came into picture. For example, in the early 19th century, Lakshmi Vilas Agrahara or Krishna Vilas Agrahara was done due to the royal patronage by the queens of Krishna Raja. Then if you see the mid 19th century, you see that there is something called as Devaramani Agrahara, which was done because of the queen Devaramani, her patronage. And in the late 19th, 20th century, there were new Agraharams that came into picture, where the royal families didn't play a role, but the nobles who were in the royal court, like the royal astrologers, came into picture. They funded the Agraharams and they designed those Agraharams. And in the modern period, something due to the municipal housing policies and acts, some Agraharams later came into picture. So these are some figure ground maps of these Agraharams that I have picked out. The next one is the morphological evolution of Agraharams across various time periods. First one during the foundational period, built by the queens and kings of the Wadiyar dynasty. So this was linked with the three temples which are placed within the complex wall of the Mysore palace. Second, from the linear style of Agraharams, they shifted from a single Agraharam to a nucleus of Agraharams, which were later combining to form a neighborhood. So by itself they became neighborhoods. So this neighborhood was not just having housing, they had other social elements like Anna Chatras, feeding houses, and chowdhuries, or you can say convention halls of that time to support the priestly community. They were narrow streets, continuous house fronts, and internal courtyards for social religious life. Along with that, after the royal patronage, the later phase came when the diversification phase came into picture, where not just the Agraharams were sponsored by the palace astrologers and the saints. So during the colonial encounter time, you see this Agraharams which were linear and very narrow roads. The roads were widened into picture like some of these roads, and cut through and abutted Agraharams, and there was a shift to the mixed use plan. So due to which presently there is a decline of this homogeneity in these Agraharams, the migrations of Brahmin families to rental conversions of these Agraharams, and also in these low-lying Agraharams there is now insertions of multi-story buildings. So Mysore has seen a transformation from a low-lying Agraharams or a slow way of life to a fast-paced urban growth process. So here I have just picked up one typical Agraharam plan and trying to understand its characteristics. So this you can see there are some similarities between the Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka side in terms of the frontage. So we have something called the veranda or the juggling. It's called Thinnai in Kerala. So they are basically social buffers for the other communities to come in, and they act like buffers for shading and seating. And then you have the central courtyard, sloping tile roof and thick walls acting as thermal mass and transition spaces in between the houses. So here the houses were integrated with the temple access and private peace, and they reinforce the social life and ecological sustainability. Next, in terms of understanding the temple and the spatiality around it, the temple is the core. Then the Agraharams surrounding them has residential bed, and linear has cluster. And the third would be the linear outer ring for economy that was generated from these Agraharams. So these Agraharams can be looked as a symbol of socio-religious order and urban morphology. So here I am not going into detail, but I just briefly explain that I identified the issues of these Agraharams like incomplete documentation that is presently there, physical deterioration and inappropriate repairs, loss of typology and streetscape, weak legal protection, economic pressure and land value, ownership fragmentation and affordability, etc. So these are the issues. So I have identified what could be the remedies that can be done to tackle these issues, and what could be the responsible bodies and the time frame given. So coming to the conclusion, Agraharas are not just residential clusters but are cultural inserts of in Mysore and other cities. When you compare with other states and other cities, in Mysore, yes, the importance need to be more reinforced because it is a historic center in Karnataka, and it's also the cultural capital of Karnataka. So these Agraharams play a vital role to restore the cultural fabric. And also by saving these Agraharams, we can also safeguard the tangible and intangible aspects that are present in Mysore. So currently this is just an introduction to this topic for Mysore. I would like to further take this research into our terms of documenting it in terms of GIS mapping and housing typologies across various Agraharas, and also to see the linkages of Agrahara heritage with the Mysore master plan, and if there could be any kind of modulation study done for the climate aspect of these Agraharas, and understand if the community is ready to participate to save conserve these Agraharas, etc. So then these are my references.